Before we start today's vlog, we just wanted to let you know that we've now released a map of the Birmingham Canal navigations. If you'd like to take a look, there's a link in the description below. Today we're leaving the Lancaster Canal and heading south on the Ribble Link and back to the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. If you watched the video where we came north, you'll know that there are only certain days of the year that this can be done, and you need to book your crossing well in advance.
Morning. As you might be able to tell from the fog from my breath, we've had our first winter chill, our first full frost. There is ice on our solar panels and there is ice on the boat. We are at the top of the Ribble Link locks, so the top of the locks that go into Southbrook. Been here for a couple of days. We were meant to get a seaworthiness certificate inspection done yesterday, but that sort of fell through at the last second due to travel arrangement problems, but it meant that we basically had an extra day sitting here. So we are waiting with 4 other boats. There are 5 boats in the basin right now. We are going to be going through the top lock, if the schedule given to us by the CRT is remotely correct, at about 9:45. At least that's the start time. That's about an hour from now. So we're just sort of getting prepared for that. Today is a little bit higher tide. In fact, it's about the highest tide that's listed on their schedule. We'll see if that's actually what turns up. Savagh has had a flood warning up until a couple of days ago due to these remnants of a large storm that passed through. So it was quite high. It now looks sort of normal high. Doesn't look particularly overflowing or anything, but that's good because the depth of Savagh is always a problem. So having a little extra water won't be an issue. There is a dead sheep in the lock, which is unfortunate for the sheep. I suppose it's also unfortunate for the farmer, but no defense. The poor sheep is floating and frozen and will no doubt go down the locks with the first boats, which will probably be us, although I can't tell for sure. The boat pulled up beside us last night and moored up. He'll probably, if they coordinate this thing in a way that makes any sense to me, they will probably move the 2 of us into the lock first and we'll go down with him. I'm hoping that leaves us as the first boat out onto Savagh itself, because this boat is brand new. They've only been on it for a few weeks, and this is going to be their first time hitting a river, or I should say having a river hit them. So it'd be good to have somebody in front of them that know how to follow, who knows the way. We'll see. Jojo is less than, feeling great about this whole trip, but that's because of the apprehension of that higher bit of water. I think once we get down Savagh, it will be fine. From what she said, she's going to walk down to the locks anyway, so we'll meet her at the bottom lock, and then we'll head down to the sea lock, and we will be waiting somewhere in there until the tide has reached a high enough point that they let the boats out. At that point, it's just straight out, turn hard right, and or find out that your engine fails at that point and just go hard left. Shouldn't happen. And then it's to Aslan Lamp, up the River Douglas, and up a lock. Today we're going to try and get as far as the Rufford first lock, or I guess the bottom lock on the Rufford near St. Mary's Marina, where we'll be able to fuel up for our sprint towards the Liverpool Link. Again, we've got 3 more days till we're supposed to go down the Liverpool Link. Yeah, so that's where we're at, and that's where we're going. The dead sheep has been pulled forward out of the lock into the basin, and the narrowboat next to us pulls forward and reverses into the lock. Next it's my turn, and as I make the maneuver, the Canal and River Trust are busy trying to pull the sheep out of the water. Reversing into a lock is quite unusual, but it's necessary here as the turning at the bottom of the staircase is too sharp to do in the conventional manner. After a week of solid rain, we're very grateful that the sun is shining on us this morning. As we said, passage through these locks onto Savagh is strictly controlled by the Canal and River Trust, so they're on hand to help us through. The top locks are a staircase of 3, which means we can reverse together into the second lock. These locks have only been in use since 2001, when the Ribble Link was opened to join the Lancaster Canal with the rest of the network. Only a few friendly gongoozlers around today. We receive a few instructions from the CRT at the bottom of the staircase. Then we take it in turns to reverse out of the lock into the basin before continuing down Saverick Brook towards the next lock. We pass under Tom Benson Way and then under the railway line. It's not too far to the first lock, and the CRT have got it open and ready for us. Saverick Brook is actually a drainage ditch for the foothills of the Pennines, and it had to be partially canalized for navigation. The sun may be shining today, but it's still really muddy around the locks from all the rain, and there is silt where the brook flooded earlier in the week. This is Lock 8, the last lock before the sea lock, so it's time for Joe and George to jump aboard, and the CRT see us through the lock. Now for the really shallow and arguably most difficult part of the journey. Although, thanks to all the rain, the water's a little higher than it might have otherwise been. George, having gotten a lift with Joe on the way north, is very unsure of the situation. We still bump and scrape around, but luckily we manage not to get stuck. Under the road bridge, avoiding the annoying metal posts. As instructed, once through the bridge we pull onto the pontoon. Soon the rest of the boats arrive and we wait, moored 3 abreast together for about an hour and a half before we're told we can proceed. And when the signal to go arrives, in the form of a wave from the CRT employee at the bend above the sea lock, there's an unnecessary and almighty scramble to set off. Engines are revved, water's sent flying, and for some reason there's a narrowboat race to the river. When all the impatient boats have gone, we set off and pass through the open sea lock. We have a little further to travel down Savert Brook before we get to the river, and we wonder what all the rushing was about because the boats are soon backing up in front of us. The first boat is turned, but it seems to be sitting at the junction and not making any progress against the tide. And then the third boat does the same. It makes the turn, but then it seems to just tread water. Luckily, the boat in front of us does better, and so there's room for us to finally turn onto the River Ribble. We soon move past the two boats that are hardly moving. I hope they have enough power to make it against the tide. The River Ribble is wide, and we are moving against the tide. There are 6 boats traveling. We have 2 in front and 3 behind us. It is about 3.5 miles from the junction with Savert Brook until we turn onto the River Douglas. Traveling against the tide, it takes over an hour.
There isn't much other traffic about, but we do have a couple of sailing boats that fly past us heading inland towards Preston.
We pass a number of mile perches, and we eventually see the Aslan lamp, which indicates the turn left onto the River Douglas. Turn any sooner, and you could end up running aground on the wall hidden underneath the sandbanks.
We make the turn, but something behind us has caught Michael's attention, and he keeps looking back. He spotted that one of the boats at the back is in trouble. It seems to have stopped and is now at a right angle across the river.
As he's nearest, it's up to the slowest boat, the one that had the most trouble at the turn, to help them out. He gets them under tow, and they start making progress down the Ribble towards the lamp. There are 6 boats that started the crossing together this morning, and 2 are now in trouble. We want to make sure that 6 boats arrive safely in Tarleton. If we were in trouble, then we would hope other boaters would help us out. We are soon going to lose sight of them if we don't slow down, so we decide to hover in place while they make the turn at the lamp. The boat behind us overtakes and then continues on with the other 2 in the lead. The towboat is really struggling as they complete the turn, and the tide has just begun to flow against us, so it's time for us to make the decision to turn around and see if they need help.
story kind of starts last night when the boat pulled into the basin and we said, come and moor next to us. And then you chatted to him briefly and he said he'd bought the boat
3 weeks ago.
And
this was his first movement of the actual boat, was to the basin. And tomorrow his shakedown cruise was to go across the Ribble Link.
So
I was like, well, that's enthusiastic.
So anyway, went through the locks this morning. The lock landings were really muddy because Suffolk Brook had been in flooding and all the locks had been overflowing, so there was just silt on the...
Yeah, there was several inches of mud in places.
And it was you'd literally step off the boat, well, you'd step off the boat, I'd step towards the boat, and it just sliding.
Yeah, everything was slippy and slick and covered in grey.
And we were sharing with that boat, and the woman on the boat had never done locks before.
He had been involved with yachts and stuff before, so he was actually really quite good on the boat.
Controlling. But she was lovely. She was just like, can you show me what to do?
Yeah. No, it was really cool talking to them.
So obviously I was quite nervous because I didn't go north, but because Lorna and Michael, we'll link our going north vlog below, but Lorna and Michael both said it wasn't as bad as the Tidal Thames trip from Limehouse to Teddington. So I was like, well, if I can do that, I can do the Ribble Link. So I was planning to do it, but there was still a little bit of nerves. But while we were actually moving through the locks, that just disappeared. It was just good fun and exciting. And then you get through the last lock and you get the instructions to go around and wait by the sea lock. And then we had an hour and a half's wait there.
You just turned into a bundle of nerves.
Well,
And I was how do I convey that we're through the worst part?
How was Suffolk Brook compared to going up?
Suffolk Brook going down was much easier than coming up. Because the water level was way higher.
It was higher because of all the rain we've had.
Yeah, a couple of scrapes versus, going 45 degrees because I've hit a massive bank of mud. It's totally different. It wasn't that bad going up, but it was frustrating, difficult,
And not what you want after the relief of getting off the Ribble.
And it's interesting because at the end that's closer to the river, it feels very much like you're traveling through jungle type thing.
Yeah.
And then it goes past a golf course and gets much more civilized very quickly. And it was the same thing but in reverse going down, but there was definitely more room to maneuver, and it was easier for me to get through all of the actual bridges and stuff. So I thought it was fine.
So then they said to us at the last lock, because that's where me and George got on the boat, when you get to the pontoon after the stone bridge, moor up. And Michael was like, I don't remember seeing a pontoon by the stone bridge.
Yeah, no, totally didn't.
And then we got
did not remember there being a pontoon at all.
And then you get there and there's a pontoon for 80-foot boat, one boat. And there's 6 boats coming. So we moved as far forward as possible. So our centre line was on the very last mooring, and that meant that a boat could get on behind, and then 2 by 2 the other boats turned up, so we were 3 abreast in front and then 3 abreast behind, and that was fine, and everyone just waited for the hour and a half.
And then all of a sudden there's a CRT guy up on the hill waving all of his arms at us.
And I tell you,
he's only got 2 arms, but
all of his arms. It was everybody just undid their ropes, started revving their engines.
Went in the entirely wrong direction all at once.
So the 2 boats at the back, the middle and the outside, were trying to go before the 2 boats next to us at the front had gone. So the outside boat went, and then the 2 boats behind overtook the boat in front, pushed out and overtook, and was sending water forwards and backwards, and it didn't feel like
men yelling at women.
Yeah, everyone was shouting. It just felt like we weren't in it together. All of a sudden it was like everyone was in a rush to be the first boat out.
Yeah.
And I can understand wanting to be the first boat out, because then you're the first boat at the other end, in theory. Didn't happen that way. But it just felt a bit rubbish, really.
It was, and it was particularly rubbish to have the boat that sort of...
The middle boat at the back, go around the middle boat at the front.
Yeah, there was this real pushing over.
And accelerating fast and sending water, which caused...
ropes to over tighten. The boat between us, I couldn't get untied at first.
Right.
And we were on our rope was locked, so I couldn't get off.
They were being dragged forward. So
yeah, and
it's just a bit shitty.
There's no call for it whatsoever, because of course, as we all get off and we end up in the course out to the actual Ribble, I have to keep slowing down because they're all just banking up against each other at the front. So there was essentially no movement, and then that was particularly fast.
So the first boat went out, and they Hang on, which
Almost
was
went backwards.
Yeah, but then they got going. And then the second boat, it's the one that had pushed from the back and started all the problems. He went out and then he really went backwards.
Yeah.
And then the third boat, which was one from the middle that overtook everyone, went back and actually went backwards and then treaded water. So much so that the next boat and
Which was
us,
the one that left. The one that left immediately before us.
yeah,
Went out and ended up in first place.
yeah, they did it right. And then we overtook two boats, the two that were in the biggest rush. That was like, why are you in such a rush, guys?
Yeah.
I don't know what they were doing because he literally, or I don't know if it was he or she who were driving. He literally was just treading water while two whole boats did the turn.
Yeah.
The turn was easy. I was worried about the turn for no reason. It was fine.
It was a granny turn. It was absolutely no problem.
And then the boat behind us, which was the new people, the people that had just bought the boat, they overtook both of the boats as well, and they were behind us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then we were on the Ribble, and it was wide, and I don't know how fast we were moving, but because it's so, like, when you're in a canal, you can tell how fast you're moving, and it feels like you're going at a pace, like a walking pace.
Yeah.
But because the river's so wide, I had no idea how fast we were going.
Slightly slower than walking pace.
Was it quite slow?
Yeah, we were going against the tide, so we were pushing maybe around walking pace. It took us a long time.
It takes about
4 miles.
Yeah, it takes about an hour to get to the turn.
Yeah.
Maybe an hour and a half to get to the next turn. I can't remember.
It was closer to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know,
Faster than we were because you see them in the distance, glorious.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit, but going south, we had the highest top.
Roughly the same, regardless of the distance it's traveling.
Yeah.
It's mainly just how high does it get and how far.
Shoot, like fast.
Yeah.
And then really tight.
So he was trying to pull in too tight.
It was,
The boat that had been the one that moored up with us last night, which was the boat that was
new
new.
boat.
I mean, I kept noticing, they're falling further and further and further behind. Well, then I got busy paying attention to the guy who's coming up too tight behind me. And by the time I next looked back, the red boat, the new boat, is sideways
oh gosh.
and stopped. And the boat that was coming, that was had been in the rear, was now well past them. And he turned and went back. Well, at this point, I realized that something's gone seriously wrong, but I don't know what. So I just kept puttering along to make the turn, kept trying to look over at the person who was sort of hip checking me. I decided probably the best thing for me to do was to call River Control to let them know that there was a boat that had possibly broken down and another boat had turned back. When I talked to River Control, who I guess are over near Preston Marina, they said, oh, he's probably turning back to Savick Brook. Like, you know, if somebody's got an engine down, he'll probably tow him into Savick Brook. So I continue around the curve, and as we come around the curve, I look back and see that, sure enough, he's gotten a rope on and he's towing me.
But they're a long way back. Like they're tiny little boats, so you can just make out there's a light blue one and a red one, kind of.
They're easily
But they won't show up on the cameras.
Almost a mile away. They're making pretty good time back. So I call back to River Control saying, don't panic. They've got them on a tow line, and it appears he's continuing on up to, up and around onto the Douglas. I start getting annoyed with the guy who's still trying to pass me for no good reason.
Because at this stage, we're the third and fourth boat. So he is guaranteed to go into the second lock. There's no way he's overtaking the front.
Yeah,
so
I don't think the math was...
Chill out and give us some space.
Because he was maybe 15 feet off.
Yeah, it's too close.
So it was too close, too tight.
Considering how big the river was.
It's really starting to be like, just back off. Because I'm spending most of my time looking over at the actual boats trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and so, are they okay?
Yeah.
And by this stage, we'd got quite far, like, along the Douglas. Like, not a big proportion of it, but we've been making progress along the Douglas.
Yeah.
So we just kind of stop at this stage and...
Yeah, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to let this guy pass. So I put the boat into essentially neutral, just kept up enough speed to kind of keep some steering, and looked back and tried to figure out what was going on with this boat.
And just check that they're going to make the turn okay, because they seemed to be getting slower, and it seemed to be that they were...
Yeah, they were slowing down considerably, and they were getting to the point where they were going to go out of our view if I continued further.
Yeah.
So I basically stayed in place, saw them get to Aslan Lamp, saw them start to make the turn. Okay, now they're going super slow, and now they're in the tide that's coming up. But the tide has stopped, or almost stopped, and it's going to turn soon. And I know this boat, the one that's doing the towing, has had problems
Yeah.
moving through water.
But that was the one that came out and started going backwards, so we knew they didn't have the best engine.
Yeah.
So at that stage, I said to Michael, if you want to turn back, we can turn around. And I
whipped us around.
and I kind of was surprised to hear those words coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're going to leave this vlog here of us then turning back on the Ribble Link, because we've already been speaking for quite a while and it's going to be too long. So the next vlog will tell you what happened when we stopped and turned around on the Ribble Link. So yeah, tune in for that. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Comment down below, and don't be scared of doing the Ribble Link. It was fun.
Yeah.
We made it.
And that's where we're going. It's that way, then 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 that way, and up. Cool.
So that isn't straight, but I can't be bothered to straighten it up, so
The hell is straight.
everyone just has to deal with the really bad.
Just deal with the lean. We will.
that way.
We're dealing with it.
So we've had a really long day. It's now 6 o'clock. It's about 6 o'clock.
Sure.
Doesn't it feel like a week ago when we were in Rufford and you were like knocking on the window going, look, there's ice?
Yeah. What?
That was this morning. Doesn't
When we
it?
were in Rufford?
Oh, not Rufford. Doesn't it feel like a week ago? When
This
we
is how uncoordinated we are. The door would open and, are you okay? Are you okay?
I would be
Are we
like-
okay?
I would be like-
Thumbs up. Are we okay? I'm like, I have to shut off the engine to hear you. No, don't shut off the engine. We're okay. If I'm not screaming swear words or swimming, we're okay.